Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. Yeah, so we are here today on our live streaming with Lambert Ebitu, the Pan-Africanist Lambert Ebitu, to talk on the ongoing summit of Brics in South Africa, the 15th summit in South Africa. We are here particularly to talk about the President Isayas Afwerki of Eritrea participating in this meeting, and what did what does he have that he can bring, that he can offer to Brics? What are the reasons? As much as this BRICS summit was exciting and it's a long-awaited summit, there were so many challenges from the South Africa side to there was a lot of bullying from the Western side against South Africa. Regardless, it happened. But nobody expected to see President Isayas Afwerki. Not that you don't deserve to be there, but he's a man that you don't see him in a lot of summits. So to break down that, Lambert Ebitu is with us. Welcome, Lambert.
Thank you, Mahlet. As always, it's an honor to be on Connect Africa.
Thank you very much. For your time. So so BRICS, as the name stands for, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, prior to this summit, around 40 countries, 40, have applied to be a member of BRICS, and among us from these countries, from Africa, like Ethiopia, Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. These are the likes of big countries that have applied to be a member. And Eritrea is not amongst these countries, and neither we have heard an interest prior to this summit from their official that Eritrea being a member, to be a member of BRICS. So what do you think, that President Isayas or Eritrea can bring to BRICS? And then also, what does Eritrea has more than other countries? Like, for example, what makes Eritrea favorable in terms of, it did not apply to be a member, but in terms of hearing from the president or anything? What can we expect?
Okay, Mahlet, thank you for that question. You've elaborated quite well that a number of countries have applied to join the BRICS, and Eritrea isn't one of those that has applied. Neither is there even a rumor that they're interested in joining. But of course, an invitation was extended to all heads of state in Africa to go and attend the summit in South Africa. And a number of them have ditted in. As we speak, they are engaged in the summit in South Africa. I think that looking at Eritrea, and having followed the politics of Eritrea straight from the time of liberation 30 years ago, one begins to wonder. Yesterday, when I saw President Isayas jetting into South Africa, and I saw part of the excitement with which he was received, I saw a man who holds a particular position that that other BRICS members highly esteem. And I remember today I wrote an article to that extent. You see, Mahlet, a number of countries have, of course, applied to join the BRICS. Now, we don't know which ones of them will be admitted. And I know that there are a number of discussions that we are having here and in other platforms on what criteria will perhaps be used to admit them, and which ones stand a better chance to be admitted to this emerging alliance of global nations. I've called them, not me calling them, it's a fact that these nations represent their continents and the aspirations of their countries. So what puts Eritrea in a better place in the event that it would want to join? Actually, that is how you frame the question, Mahlet. I would like to reframe the question and say, because I have argued that Eritrea might not even need to apply to join. I am of the opinion that they could actually invite Eritrea to join instead of applying to sending in a request to join. Incidentally, that's what they did with South Africa. South Africa was invited to join. Of course, for South Africa's case, I can understand because they wanted an entry into Africa. That is one. And South Africa, of course, is one of the 2-3 largest economies in Africa. But here is Eritrea. It is not among the largest economies. It is not even the most populous country in Africa. It even doesn't have the population which gives a numerical advantage in terms of the marketability, talk of business, perhaps the business arm of Brics. So what would interest the Brics in having Eritrea as a member as one of their members? This is an interesting question, Mahlet, and I'm going to tackle it from two perspectives. Other countries, their chances to join the Brics can be judged on the basis of their GDP, their economy. It can be judged on the basis of their population. For example, others have looked at Nigeria, looked at Ethiopia, looked at Egypt. And when they look at those countries, people are looking at the GDP. It's among the biggest in Africa. And we are talking about the Brics being interested in countries which bring in a larger GDP. In fact, most people, when judging the potential of Brics to rival other alliances in the world, look at the GDP. And of course, if you look at the GDP, the Brics is way above all other alliances combined. But then, of course, Eritrea doesn't have that big GDP. But we are saying it may not actually even request to join. It is going to be invited to join. That's my perspective. Why do I say that? It brings in the second aspect, Mahlet, the aspect of the leader of the country. Do not forget, the Brics is at a formative stage. The Brics is at a level where it is still being backed, and therefore it desires a kind of arrangement where the right leadership is in it. So I think the biggest and the first quality that's going to have Eritrea limited into Brics is going to be the quality of its leader, the track record of the president of Eritrea. And I think they're going to be looking at that. I began by saying that if you look at the politics of Eritrea straight from independence, Eritrea presents the kind of politics, the kind of economic policies around which the Brics as an alliance is actually founded. You look at the policies of multipolarity. You look at it is quest for self-reliance over the years. And what makes Eritrea a very interesting example, and why I think that the Brics leadership is going to be very interested in bringing in the president of Eritrea to be part of this alliance, is because President Isayas didn't just wake up yesterday. If you go back 30 years ago, the man's ideas of self-reliance, the man's ideas of multipolarity began straight from the day that Eritrea gained its independence as a country. You will remember about 2-3 years later, Eritrea began to refuse food aid, for example, from entering its country. So why am I saying this? I'm trying to say this to show us that Eritrea's position as a country that prioritizes self-reliance goes back to 30 years ago. Earlier this year, Mahlet, the president of Eritrea, had a working visit in China and also had a working visit in Russia. Most people might think that it is out of the blue. I don't share that opinion. It goes back for me as evidence of President Isayas' insight. I would call it that it was by prophetic design. That President Isayas was able to see the events that are taking place at this moment 30 years ago. President Isayas was able to predict that at some certain point in time, the world would begin to revolt against hegemonistic powers, and we would begin to see different centers of power emerging. And he knew that if I can only hold on up to that time, then a time will come, despite the sanctions, despite the rapprochement, despite what I'm going to suffer as an individual president and as a country, in the next 20, 30 years, we are going to see a multipolar world. And in that multipolar world, Eritrea, with its long-standing insistence on its sovereignty, will be a key player. And that's why we are seeing recently, of course, he visited China, he visited Russia. You begin to see that President Isayas is playing a central role in a multipolar world. And for me, this is important for Brics. Why? Brics is at a formative stage. And being at a formative stage, Brics needs leaders with foresight. Leaders who are able to see into the future. Leaders who are able to predict what will happen in the next 10, 20 years. So, at a personal level, President Isayas has a kind of prophetic insight that could be very significant and important for Brics. You know, the emergence of Brics, of course, offers a challenge to other alliances. So if I was a member of Brics, and I know that this should be what is playing in the mind of President Putin of Russia, this should be the thing that's playing in the mind of President Xi of China. They desire a kind of membership, not just those that have the biggest GDP, because at the end of the day, this alliance being at a formative level will need leadership. It needs the kind of leaders who understand what it takes to build an alliance. And the president of Eritrea, considering his history, considering his track record, considering his commitment to multipolarity, considering his perseverance and resistance to the hegemonistic powers that have sought to subdue not just Eritrea, but any country that seeks to diverge from their ambitions. Considering that track record, I think that it presents a very interesting, kind of leadership that would be very significant for Brics. And I think those at Brics will be looking at that this man can provide an example, that can provide experience and the leadership, and of course the foresight that they will need going forward.
Thank you very much, Lambert, for that. Now, we have seen on some of the topics that are going to be discussed or already discussed as we speak, some divisive topics rather than uniting amongst these founding members, such as the expansion of Brics to other members, accepting other members, and the de-dollarization. The key figures or founding members who are in different terms are India and China. For example, India wants Brics to have that, the multipolar thing, but not really being against the world order that exists now. It wants basically to hold on both. Which is led by, it's not really the world order, the existing international world order is led by the US. Now, China, on the other hand, yes, it is multipolarism is the main issue, but it really go and say it publicly out loud that it's against the hegemony of the US or the West of the existing world order. Now, these are the founding members. They have different, so this brings the next divisive issue, which is the expansion. Because of that, India now wants to make, to have a requirement really to limit the membership of Brics, while fearing China will have an impact or an influence on the new members. So with this at play, do you think now President Isayas' view, from what you explained, and of course from what we know, he has been consistent that a world of equal and the multipolarism against being the hegemony of the few in the which are from the Western world. Do you think his view will make an impact? He's consistent, he's strong. In his view, for the past 3 decades, it has been the same principle for him. But how much of an impact he can be, even if he's given the position?
One thing we began by acknowledging that Eritrea hasn't applied to join the BRICS, and
And
it
you
hasn't.
say it should be invited, right?
Yes, I think that members of BRICS, particularly China and Russia, could actually desire that they invite Eritrea to join because of the personality of the president of Eritrea. Now, but then we have to ask ourselves, why hasn't Eritrea even applied to join yet? It takes us back to the kind of leadership and the kind of foresight of President Isayas. Like I said, is able to look so much always to the future. And I think that is first, you know, a thing about President Isayas, for those who have followed his politics so well, he does not jump into things. He wants a certain level of guarantee. And I think that President Isayas is still trying to dilly-dally a bit on expressing any personal interest to join this. And also, is a man of impact. He doesn't want to just join and become a member. And I know that to apply means that you are mostly looking at the benefits that can be gained from the alliance. President Isayas may not have been among the founders of this, and of course Eritrea isn't among the founding countries. But I think that to become part of it, President Isayas would want to have an impact, which is beyond just adding to the GDP of this. Now, so between what India wants and what what China wants, and I know that much of what China wants aligns with what Russia would want. One thing that India is playing, I see India trying to play a balancing act. India hasn't so clearly detached itself from the European Union and other alliances, and I think that it is trying to play the balancing act of having feet in both places. Now, one of the fears I see India having in the admission of more members into the alliance, particularly for me, I would want to look at other members with a significant influence. One of the fears India could be having is that if other members are brought in, it seems to appear that of any other members who could be brought in, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, these members could have a higher affinity, towards aligning with China. For example, which have expressed interest, not invited of course, but have expressed interest to join the alliance, and you look at the levels of bilateral relationships between these countries and China, and between these countries and India, and you find that it's a stronger relationship between these countries and China. So perhaps one of the fears of India could be that if these countries come, they will numerically outbalance the impact of India within the alliance, and that should be one of its fears. And so this is going to be very significant moving forward, because India, of course, represents a major member of the BRICS alliance. But also this debate, this contrast, this argument between China and India, of course, for me, looking at it from the background, could be partly one of the reasons why Eritrea and President Isayas are holding back. Like I told you, that a thing about President Isayas is his ability to foresee into the future. And it's not, you remember, even Eritrea's membership of other organizations, it's recorded. President Isayas has been able to withdraw. At the beginning, by the way, he even had issues with the African Union. He always thought that these organizations are not sufficiently independent enough for him to be a member of. They weren't sufficiently independent enough for him and his country, Eritrea, to be members of. Like I said, Eritrea, under the guidance of President Isayas, does not just want to be a member. He wants to be at the level of making an impact. He wants to be at the level of decision making. We began by saying, and I will repeat this again, that Eritrea, President Isayas, has been a pioneer of this. He has been a key spokesman of the principles based upon which the BRICS is today being formed. Principles of equality, territorial sovereignty, principles of mutual development, respect among members. These are the principles based on which Eritrea has been founded. These are the principles based on which President Isayas has, has found his leadership over the last 30 years. And I'm thinking, if he's going to join the Brics, if, for example, he's going to want to be part of Brics, he wants to make sure that these principles remain the basic foundation on which the Brics is founded. And given the way India, and by the way, not only India, even South Africa are playing, there seems to be a bit, a lack of clarity on where they exactly stand. The desire to play a balancing act between the West and the East, the desire to play a balancing act between the BRICS and other alliances seems to be, should be able to hold back leaders who would want to see BRICS take its place as one of the leading alliances in the world, as a counterbalancing act, a counterbalancing alliance for others. And I think this is going to be significant, even in President Isayas making that decision to join the alliance.
Thank you, Lambert, for that. I just noticed that we logged in on the. I logged in on a different. It's the same YouTube channel, but on a different topic that was with a different title. So yeah, that's why
I actually noticed that. I thought, well, I'm not so familiar with how.
Okay, no, but I will correct it. It's okay. It can be corrected. Yeah. So, do you think that only the leadership of President Isayas is enough for him to be invited? That's one. So only the leadership, because what we are seeing, what you said from the beginning, what we hear, what we read is that most of the time, whether it's Ethiopia, Egypt, or Iran or Saudi Arabia, it's the GDP and the natural resource that they're going to bring to the table. That's one. So is the leadership enough, good enough to join?
Well, I think leadership is the first.
Okay.
Yes, leadership is a first, and for me, I think that is what President Xi of China and Putin of Russia would want first. They want leaders who have a clear understanding first of what BRICS is, who have a clear understanding and a clear projection of what BRICS could become in the next 10 years. And President Isayas has shown over time that he's somebody who's able to see to the future. But that's not the only reason. Also, the potential of Eritrea, in terms of its geostrategic location at the home of Africa. President Isayas has also shown a level of dependence. He's the one leader that President Xi and Russia and China and other leaders in the BRICS alliance can actually depend on. And so much about Eritrea is not known, but the potential for Eritrea to contribute even economically is significant. We may not have to look at it in terms of its GDP, but we have to look at it in terms of the potential to grow its GDP, given the right circumstances. One of the reasons the GDP and the economy of Eritrea is not performing at its best has been the blockade, that has been made on the country straight from around, I think, 1999. When sanctions were put on the country and the demonization of the country among Western partners. But the potential to grow, because you see, Mahlet, for any country to grow, it begins from its laws, the policies of that country. And I think looking at Eritrea as a country, the policy framework is the right one. The insistence on self-reliance is the correct one. The insistence on mutually beneficial relationships is the right policy. The discipline of Eritreans as people is another one. If you look at among the most hardworking people within the continent, it's Eritreans. You cannot have managed to have Eritrea today if it wasn't for the national discipline of the people of Eritrea. So the human resource in Eritrea is very, very significant. What this human resource needs is a little bit of an alliance with the countries that are willing to operate on a basis of respect. Countries that are willing to offer opportunities and to receive opportunities. countries that are able to help give this human resource the technology, the exposure, and the kind of infrastructure that is required for them to be able to demonstrate their expertise, for them to be able to leverage their resources and grow as a country. I believe, it is just of recent that we are seeing the government of Eritrea reaching out so much to the world, and not just to any world, reaching out to China, reaching out to Russia, reaching out to other development partners who don't exactly have a very close affinity with the West. It is coming at a time, I think, because President Isayas realizes that in his prophetic insight, this is the moment when the world has gotten different power centers and is trying to take hold of these opportunities. In the past, for example, if this summit was happening maybe 10 years ago, I don't think any of us would have expected President Isayas to attend this summit. I mean,
Yes.
he's always kept himself away. Why out of a sudden are we seeing him giving interviews to the media? Why all of a sudden are we seeing him going to Russia and signing contracts?
Yeah.
Why all of a sudden are we seeing him going to China and signing, business contracts? Why all of a sudden are we seeing him going to South Africa, accepting the invitation to go and be part of this alliance? Because he has noticed an opportunity. He has realized that there is now, a broadening of power centers outside those who have disenfranchised and tried to bedevil and sanction and subjugate Eritrea. So, if he can be able to leverage these opportunities, then we see Eritrea's GDP, blossoming, at an unprecedented rate, because the human resource is there. The national psyche, in terms of the kind of development that should be pursued, is well entrenched in Eritrea. And I think this is what still the think tanks within the Brics Alliance would be looking at. Because some countries have had all the critical factors you need, all the friendships, all the IMF loans, all the World Bank loans, all the kind of packs from the West, and they still have a GDP that's not really so much better than Eritrea. What about Eritrea that has been under sanctions? Now, Russia, China, Brazil, these countries know that Eritrea as a country has all the critical factors, the human resource, it has the natural resources that are still unbroken. If they can ally and be able to give opportunities to this country, it is going to boost it up in terms of the GDP. And so from an economic perspective, they will still benefit from a big GDP. They will still benefit from the human resource, benefit from the resources of Eritrea. And above else, I mentioned this, although I didn't speak much about it, the geopolitical location of Eritrea at the Horn of Africa, next to the Red Sea. This again is a matter that is very significant. It is strategic that they would not just want any country anywhere. The positioning of Eritrea at the Horn of Africa, particularly where it's located, is very significant in maritime politics. The access to the sea, the use of it, and I'm sure China, Russia will be quite interested in this positioning. They have already said that, and they acknowledge the significance of that. So it is not just leadership. Although for me, I see leadership as the biggest, take away that they would want from Africa. I mentioned something recently that Brics is foresighted. Brics is looking at a multipolar world, and they have a particular interest in Africa. Where does the leadership of President Isayas again become significant? It is in offering this experience. It is in cushioning, in cushioning the emerging crop of leaders within the continent who have a multipolar thinking. I'll take you to what's happening right now in West Africa. We have seen the kind of renaissance that is taking place in Mali, what is taking place in Burkina Faso, what is taking place in Niger, and that is going to be spreading. Let me tell you, the kind of understanding, the awareness that they need to take charge of their future, charge of their resources, that they want to be allowed to relate with the world without being forced to choose sides. Now, but you know, these leaders are beginning on a path, Mahlet, that Eritrea began 30 years ago. You know, so the experience of having lived through the 30 years is something that the Brics will be interested in, particularly because they need these countries to continue. One of the biggest beneficiaries of what is taking place, the awakening, the desire for self-assertion, self-determination, what we see in West Africa and other parts of Africa is good. Is good for Brics, but it's not going to be easy. Why won't it be easy? Because while they have chosen this path, you are seeing sanctions coming. You are seeing Burkina Faso being sanctioned right now. You are seeing Niger being sanctioned. Will these leaders be able to maintain the momentum and ensure that that they do not cave in, they do not accept and fall into the pressure? Because they said so much pressure. If they should accept and fall into this pressure, then they go back to the very beginning. You know, a position where Brics would have wanted them to be removed from, and where, as it stands, they have been removed. Now, how do they sustain this path? This is where the leadership, the guidance, and the example in practice of Eritrea comes into play. So again, I am saying, if Brics has Eritrea as a member, if Brics has President Isayas as a member, then they're going to begin to see that he can position himself and offer this kind of leadership, offer his experience, having gone through the same treatment over the last 30 years, offer this experience to the new leaders of Burkina Faso, of Mali, of Niger, and other countries within Africa that are finally breaking off the vestiges of colonialism and beginning to pursue a self-determinant path. So that is where his leadership again comes in. I think, and I believe, Mahlet, that of all the countries that have applied to join the Brics, if you look at their presidents, and a decision has to be made based on the kind of leadership they offer. The president of Eritrea, that is President Isayas, takes the first spot before anybody who would be forced, who would perhaps have to make a decision based on leadership alone.
Interesting. Very, nicely laid out. So you have mentioned also, which I agree, we haven't seen Eritrea for the past decades. You know, I think up until the president's visit to China and Russia, it was a very quiet country. Even during the war in the northern part of Ethiopia, relatively, they were very quiet. On media, that's what I'm talking about. Now, all of a sudden, there is this visit that the president is out and about, and the media as well. Now we have seen him at the Brics summit. Perhaps this is, as you said, he has anticipated a long time ago this time, like that he has foreseen it. But the thing is, he has not been also in the summit, like whether, I mean, the African Union summit where his country belongs, and other world summits. Now, what is really the most important thing that resonated with him when it comes to Brics that made him to come? Of course, President Ramaphosa has extended, I think it's 69 world leaders have been invited, but still he has been invited so many times by other summits and he didn't go, like this, such as the AU. Why now? What really resonated with his principle?
President Mahlet, President Isayas resonates, number one, and most importantly, with the membership of Brics, particularly two individuals, Russia and China. President Isayas has seen the opportunity, you know, I mean, by the way, what China and Russia are doing now is simply taking leadership on issues that President Isayas has championed for the last 30 years. You know, and they're taking leadership because of other factors as well, being one, a military power Russia is, an economic power China is. What they have done, I am sure if it was within the power of President Isayas, would have been done 30 years ago. What is happening today? I remember when he visited Russia, he actually raised that issue and said Russia in the years of the Soviet Union was a key player in terms of resisting, hegemonistic, world hegemony by others. But over the last few years, Russia withdrew from that. And he was trying to say that in the last 30 years, Russia, and it is true, Russia was itself trying to play a balancing act. Russia thought that it could be the bridge between Europe, between the different parts of Europe over the last few years, until President Putin noticed that he could not do that, and that he needed to pursue a path that is divergent from the other Europeans. And I think that is what led or what motivated Russia to actually become, to join its peers, China and India and the rest, to form the Brics. Now, President Isayas, number one, has looked at the membership of Brics. And having looked at this membership, he realizes that the potential of Brics to bring to life a vision that he has held for the last 30 years, to actualize the kind of world that he has envisioned for the last 30 years. This is the moment. And I think this is why it's a throne. And don't forget, Mahlet, that going to South Africa is coming on the back of a trip to China. It comes on the back of a trip to Russia. What we don't know is what was discussed. Of course, there is what we are told. But what could have gone behind the discussions between the president of China and President Isayas when he visited? What was that they discussed that perhaps we haven't yet been told between Putin and President Isayas? Because all of this is now happening. All this media exposure, all this willingness to attend the BRICS summit in South Africa is coming after that. Was he given some guarantees? Did he, because I'm so sure, knowing President Isayas is not a man who just jumps into something. It takes time to understand. He does not want to be caught off guard. So was he given assurances by the president of Russia? Was he given assurances by the president of China that this is something good, that this is the vision? Did they share the vision with him? Did they tell him that in 10 years, this is what we want, and it is consistent with what you have been wanting for the last 30 years? Could this be the reason why he has finally said, okay, fine, if this is your word? And of course, I'm sure it takes the word of President Xi and President Putin seriously. And if they have given his word, if they have given his vision, if they have given the vision of BRICS to President Isayas and he bought it, I suspect that is the number one reason why he's attending this summit. And I also suspect it could be the beginning of something big, a bigger engagement. And like I said at the start of our conversation, Mahlet, I suspect next you will find that he's been given an invitation to join the BRICS alliance. This could all be part of the process. This could be, all be part of having him begin to join the alliance, even without yet, formally applying to join it. I am very interested, and anybody should interest himself on why President Isayas is finally beginning to open up and has accepted, for example, to be in South Africa to attend the BRICS summit. Why is that? Why coming after the visit to Russia, after the visit to China? I think there must have been some kind of backroom discussion, some kind of backroom, selling and sharing of the vision of BRICS. And I believe President Isayas has bought into his vision. And that explains why he's accepted to be in BRICS, in South Africa. And it will also be behind his decisions going forward. It's interesting to see, anyway, how it plays out in the next few months.
It's an interesting insight that you bring, that reasoning, his visit, who said that this visit is not really the result of his prior visit months or a couple of months ago, maybe not a couple of months ago, to Russia and China. Yeah, it could be very true. He must have been given maybe some kind of assurances, as you said. But now I have a question from what you said. You said that, now Brics is looking at Africa, and one of the team for this summit is actually Brics and Africa. That's one of the 4 teams which are on the table for this summit. Now his leadership, if it is his leadership that's needed, his consistency with his principle, then of course his leadership to impact the African countries, right? Then, okay, good, we agree until here. Then the President Isayas, or even the country Eritrea, is, because they have been so quiet. I was asking this question to my analysts here whenever Eritrea comes up in the discussion. You have been so shy for long, like media shy, kind of, for long time, for more than 3 decades. And now what brings out the president now, meaning that was as a time when his visit in Russia and China. So my question is, he's barely known amongst the African nation. Even here, myself, when we discuss Eritrea, when Eritrea comes, into the discussion, people ask, like, we haven't heard about Eritrea. So why do they think he will have? I'm not underestimating him, definitely not. But why do a man that has not been heard that much and known, you don't hear him talking, like, for example, the Kagame of Rwanda, or I don't know, there are many leaders who talk, like Ruto, Museveni of Uganda, that they believe he would make an impact
Mahlet,
in leadership.
Mahlet,
Yeah,
that actually is his biggest selling point.
really
One thing about Pierre is that he walks the talk.
true.
One of the reasons why there is a high level of trust of powers like Russia. I mean, it is not an easy thing, Mahlet, for Putin to trust you and they trust Pierre. It's not an easy thing for the president of China to trust you and they trust Pierre. Why is that the case? Because there's a difference between talking and playing into the gallery of world politics and actually meaning what you undertake to do. And you talk about Kagame, you talk about President Museveni, you talk about other presidents who talk a lot. Sometimes they speak as they really talk Pan-African. But you see, one of the challenges of Africa, Mahlet, is leaders who talk to the gallery but do less of the work. You see Ruto talking a lot, but his actions are contrary. You see Kagame talking about Pan-Africanism, and then the next day, is among those who want to send a force to Haiti, fellow Africans, to go and invade the country. That isn't Pan-Africanism. You hear Ruto speaking about Pan-Africanism, and he's sending Kenyan soldiers to Haiti to go and invade a fellow country on behalf, of the West. So this contradiction between what you say and what you do is why these leaders, are held in suspicion by countries who have even better intelligence, because China has better intelligence. They're able to tell that this one is just talking, but the fact is in bed with the West. That is that you don't play with Russia. They have one of the best intelligence, the best intelligence infrastructure in the world. China, this is superpower. They know which leader just talks, and they know which leader keeps quiet and does it. Now, you are saying Pierre has been quiet over this. Even in Africa, anybody who has followed events, anybody who chooses to judge leaders by what they do, will tell you that he has very high respect for the president of Eritrea. It's not just about talking. It's okay to talk and get hand claps and get ululations and they praise you and they write about you. But what Africa needs, Mahlet, is people who walk the talk. You know, when just after getting independence, Pierre said Eritrea would become a self-independent country. 2 years later, he asked all those who wanted to bring aid to keep their aid. This is the kind of leadership we want. You do less talking, you do more work, and this is what Pierre does, and this is what Africa needs. This is what we are seeing right now in Burkina Faso. Do more of the work, get to the work, and this is what Pierre does. So it's not about saying that he has been quiet. Yes, he has been quiet, but he has been working. And anybody who follows Eritrea does not, cannot fail to notice that Eritrea has some of the best indicators, even with sustainable goals. You look at the health sector; it's among the best, in Africa. Even the economy isn't doing so bad. And when you look at the fact that it has been under sanctions for years, then you begin to appreciate that what has been done under those circumstances is massive, and that it is only a leader who does the work more than the top who can achieve such a feat in any African country. So China knows this, Russia knows this, and let me tell you, Mahlet, China's problem with the so-called Pan-African presence in Africa is actually that the contradiction between what they say and what they do. Look at them. They talk about Pan-Africanism. They talk about a multipolar world. When they are voting in the National Security Council, they are voting with the West, taking sides with the West. How is that Pan-Africanism? Haiti is being invaded, and you are sending in soldiers. But while you're doing that, you are wearing counter suits to prove that you're Pan-African. That is a contradiction. It's a hypocrisy. And international courtesy, which China and Russia understand better, necessitates that they may not have to say it in the open. Yes. So that is that, Mahlet.
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm glad that I asked. I said it clear. I'm not underestimating his leadership and what he's capable of, and then the diplomacy of Eritrea. They do a lot of things, but we just don't read it. It's not on media. So somebody actually said we are covered. Actually, some of the things are even not planned. But as much as our conversation, our discussion topics for tonight is. We are covered, and thank you very much, Lambert. I have to ask you, because I know time is a constraint. Do we have like 10 minutes? Usually we go through their comments, and if there's question, we bring it to the analyst. Is that okay? Do you have 10 minutes?
I'm actually having to move out. It's okay. They can ask as I move out. It's okay. I'll be listening.
Okay. Let me put, okay. Just a second. So just one question, maybe. Otherwise, we close it here. Yeah, it's fine. You know what, Lambert, let's just close it really. Thank you very much. It's not, I know it's not convenient for you right now. So if there's anything, and if you have any questions, thank you very much for tuning in. Please put it in a comment section, and Lambert himself personally will go through the comments and he will answer it to you, right? Let's agree with that. Yeah? Yeah.
Okay, Mahlet, I have to go.
Okay. All right then. So thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you. So please share this video with your network. Thank you, Lambert. Ciao, ciao. Bye. Bye. Thank you.